My stepdad threw away all my dad's things while I was at school, told me it was time to move on. At our family gathering last month, he wanted to be honored as my only real father, but I had a surprise waiting. The look on his face when I pulled out the evidence is something I'll never forget. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October when I came home from my last class. The house was quiet except for the hum of the dryer in the laundry room. I dropped my backpack by the door and headed to my room, planning to look through my dad's old baseball cards like I did every year around his birthday. My real dad, the one who died when I was 8. The box wasn't under my bed. I checked the closet, behind my desk, under the pile of winter clothes I hadn't put away yet. Nothing. A cold feeling settled in my stomach as I searched every corner of my room. I heard the front door open and close. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. Then Greg appeared in my doorway, my mom's husband of 4 years. "Looking for something?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Dad's memory box," I said. "The one with his cards and photos?" Greg crossed his arms. "Oh, that old thing? I cleaned out the garage and attic today. A lot of junk had to go." "That wasn't junk," I said, my voice tight. "Where is it?" "Look, Jason, it's been 10 years. Your mom and I agreed it's time to move forward. Those things were just collecting dust, keeping you stuck in the past." I felt like I'd been punched. Mom would never agree to throw away Dad's things. "Well, she did," Greg shrugged. "The garbage truck came this morning. It's gone. Time to let go, buddy." He patted my shoulder as he walked past, whistling as he headed to the kitchen. I stood frozen in my room, trying to process what happened. My dad's baseball cards, the handwritten letters, the watch his father had given him, all gone. And the way Greg said it so casually, like he'd tossed out old newspapers. I called my mom at work. When she answered, I could hear the confusion in her voice as I explained what happened. "Jason, I never told him to do that," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I would never... I'll talk to him when I get home." But when she came home, their conversation behind closed doors ended with her coming to my room with red-rimmed eyes. "Greg says it was a misunderstanding," she said. "He thought those were just old things in storage. He didn't realize how important they were." I knew it was a lie. The box was clearly labeled Dad's Things, Jason. Greg had been trying to erase my father from our lives since he moved in. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all those memories, now sitting in some landfill. Around 2 a.m., I went to the kitchen for water and noticed Greg's phone on the counter. He always left it charging there overnight. A notification lit up the browser screen, a reminder about the upcoming family reunion. That's when I had an idea. The next morning, I called my Aunt Sarah, my dad's sister. We weren't close anymore. Greg had made sure of that, claiming she was a negative influence because she still talked about my dad. When she answered, I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Jason, is everything okay?" I told her what happened. She was silent for a moment, then said, "You know, I have copies of most of those photos, and some of his letters. Your dad sent me duplicates of a lot of things after your mom got pregnant with you. He was so excited to be a father." For the first time since yesterday, I felt a glimmer of hope. "Could I come see them?" "Of course. And Jason, I never told you this, but before your dad died, he left a box with me. Things he wanted you to have when you were older. I tried to give it to your mom a few years ago, but Greg said you were trying to move on and it would just upset you." Another lie. Another piece of my father, Greg, had tried to keep from me. I visited Aunt Sarah that weekend, telling my mom I was studying with friends. The box she had saved was even better than I'd hoped. Photos I'd never seen, letters my dad had written to me before he died, even his old leather jacket that still smelled faintly of his cologne. "He wanted you to have these when you turned 18, Aunt Sarah said. "That's only a few months away now." I took pictures of everything with my phone, but left the originals with her. I didn't trust Greg not to find them at home. Over the next few weeks, I noticed Greg getting more controlling. He accidentally deleted old family photos from my mom's cloud storage. He rearranged the living room, putting away the one photo of my dad that still sat on the bookshelf. He even suggested we sell the house, the one my dad had bought, the only home I'd ever known. My mom seemed to shrink a little more each day. She'd always been strong, but since marrying Greg, she'd become quieter, more hesitant. She'd defer to him on decisions she used to make confidently. I wondered if she even realized how much of herself she'd given up. Then came the real kicker. At dinner one night, Greg announced that the annual family gathering would be at our house this year. "And," he said, looking directly at me, "I think it's time we stopped with the awkward introductions. I'm not Greg, your stepdad. I'm just your dad now. My mom glanced at me nervously. Greg, Jason might not be comfortable with. It's been 4 years, Claire, Greg interrupted. 4 years I've been raising him, paying for his clothes, his food, his college applications. If that doesn't make me his father, what does? I pushed my plate away, no longer hungry. My father was Michael Jason Reynolds. I'm named after him. Greg's face hardened. Your father isn't here. He hasn't been here for 10 years. I am. And at the family gathering, I expect you to acknowledge that. He wanted to be honored. That's what this was about. The gathering always included a toast to the heads of each family branch. Greg wanted to stand up as my father, with me beside him, acknowledging him as the only dad in my life. I nodded slowly. You're right. My father isn't here. I stood up from the table. And neither are his things, since you threw them in the trash. I walked out before he could respond. In my room, I pulled out my phone and texted Aunt Sarah. I need your help with something. The family gathering was 3 weeks away. I spent that time carefully gathering evidence. I installed a small camera in the garage after I found Greg going through more of my things. It caught him taking a small box of my childhood drawings, ones I'd made for my dad, and tossing them in the outdoor trash bin. I recovered them later, damp from rain, but still intact. More proof. I also found emails on our shared family computer where Greg had contacted my dad's old friends, telling them to stop sending me birthday cards because it was reopening old wounds. He'd intercepted messages meant for me for years. The most damning evidence came from my mom's old phone. She'd upgraded recently, and I found the old one in her drawer, still working. There were text messages from Greg dating back years, slowly isolating her from my dad's family, from her old friends, even from her sister, who lived just an hour away. Claire, your sister keeps bringing up Michael. It's not healthy for Jason to keep dwelling on this. Maybe we should skip Christmas with her this year. I don't think Jason should spend so much time with Sarah. She's living in the past, and it's affecting him. He came home asking questions about Michael again. Message after message, all designed to cut us off from anyone who remembered my father, to make Greg the center of our world. The day of the family gathering arrived. Relatives from both my mom's side and Greg's filled our backyard. I helped set up tables and chairs, smiling and nodding as Greg played the perfect host. He kept one arm around my mom's waist, the other gesturing expansively as he showed off the yard he'd landscaped, the deck he'd built. All for my family, he kept saying. Nothing more important than family. Aunt Sarah arrived late, carrying a large gift bag. Greg's smile tightened when he saw her. Sarah, didn't expect you to make it, he said. Wouldn't miss it, she replied, hugging my mom. Claire, you look beautiful. As the afternoon progressed, I stayed quiet, helping serve food, refilling drinks. Greg kept glancing at me, clearly pleased by my cooperative behavior. He didn't notice me setting up my laptop near the makeshift podium where the toasts would happen. Finally, it was time. Greg's father went first, raising a glass to his children. My mom's brother toasted his family branch. Then, Greg stepped up, pulling my mom and me to stand beside him. I want to toast my beautiful family, he said, his arm tight around my shoulders. My amazing wife Claire, and my son Jason. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew I wasn't his son by birth. Greg continued, his voice carrying across the yard. Some might say stepson, but that's not how I see it. I've been Jason's father in every way that matters for the past 4 years. I've raised him, guided him, supported him. He looked at me, expectant. This was my cue to smile gratefully, to validate his claim. Instead, I stepped away from his arm. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I'd like to say something. Greg's smile froze. My mom looked confused. I walked to my laptop and pressed play. The screen lit up with a slideshow. Photos of my dad holding me as a baby, teaching me to ride a bike, at my 8th birthday party just weeks before he died. Photos Greg had tried to erase. My father was Michael Jason Reynolds, I said. He died when I was 8, but he'll always be my dad. I'm grateful for these memories, and for the people who've helped me preserve them. I nodded to Aunt Sarah, who smiled encouragingly. Unfortunately, not everyone has respected those memories. I clicked to the next slide, a video from my hidden camera showing Greg dumping my memory box into the garbage bin, checking to make sure no one was watching. The yard went silent. Greg stepped forward, his face reddening. Turn that off, he hissed. I clicked again. Now the screen showed screenshots of his texts to my mom, his emails to my dad's friends, his systematic campaign to erase my father from our lives. This isn't about honoring family, I said, looking directly at Greg. It's about control, about replacing someone you were jealous of, even though he's been gone for 10 years. You ungrateful little... Greg started, lunging for the laptop. My uncle, my mom's brother, stepped between us. That's enough, Greg. Greg turned to my mom, his expression shifting to wounded innocence. Claire, are you going to let him do this? After everything I've done for you both? My mom was staring at the screen, at her own texts displayed for everyone to see. Messages where she'd defended me, where she'd pushed back against Greg's attempts to isolate us, followed by her eventual surrender to keep the peace. You told me Jason wanted to move on, she said quietly. You said he asked you to put away the photos. I was trying to help him heal, Greg insisted. These morbid reminders weren't healthy. They weren't yours to throw away, I said. They weren't yours to decide about at all. I clicked to the final slide, a photo of my dad holding me on his shoulders, both of us laughing. This is my father. Nothing will ever change that. Greg looked around at the crowd of relatives, all watching in uncomfortable silence. His carefully constructed image was crumbling. The perfect stepfather, the generous provider, now exposed as petty and controlling. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. I've done everything for this family, everything. And this is the thanks I get? He pointed at Aunt Sarah. You put him up to this, didn't you? You've always tried to undermine me. No, Greg, she said calmly. You did this yourself. Greg stormed off, slamming the back door as he went into the house. The gathering broke into awkward clusters of conversation. Several of my mom's relatives came to hug me. Greg's family made excuses and left early. Later that night, I found my mom sitting alone on the deck, staring at the abandoned party decorations. I'm sorry, I said, sitting beside her. I didn't mean to ruin everything. She shook her head. You didn't ruin anything. I did. I let him come between us. Between you and your memories. You were trying to move forward, I said. That's not wrong. Moving forward doesn't mean erasing the past. She took my hand. Your father would be so proud of you, standing up for yourself, for him. Greg moved out the following week. My mom didn't ask him to leave. He just couldn't handle the loss of control, the fact that everyone had seen behind his facade. He tried to paint me as the villain, the ungrateful stepson who humiliated him, but the evidence spoke for itself. Aunt Sarah brought over the box of my dad's things. We spent an evening going through it together, my mom crying and laughing as she rediscovered mementos she thought were lost forever. I can't believe I almost let these go, she said, holding one of my dad's old sweaters. A month later, we repainted the living room. Not to erase Greg's presence, but because we wanted a fresh start. We hung photos of my dad alongside new ones of just mom and me. We invited Aunt Sarah over regularly. We rebuilt connections with friends Greg had pushed away. On my 18th birthday, I wore my dad's leather jacket from Aunt Sarah's saved box. My mom gave me his watch, the one she thought Greg had thrown away, but she'd actually hidden in her jewelry box years ago, afraid he'd get rid of it. I should have stood up to him sooner, she said, as I opened the small box containing the watch. I thought I was protecting our future by letting go of the past. I was wrong. I put on the watch, feeling its weight on my wrist. We don't have to choose between past and future, Mom. We can have both. And that's what we did. We moved forward without forgetting where we came from. I kept my dad's memory alive while building my own life. I applied to the same college he attended, wearing his watch to the interview. I got in. As for Greg, I heard he remarried quickly, another single mom with a young son. Sometimes I wonder if he's trying the same tactics again, slowly erasing someone else's history to make himself the hero. But that's not my story anymore. My story is about a boy who lost his father twice, once to death, and once to someone who couldn't stand his memory. But in the end, I reclaimed both. The father who gave me life, and the future he would have wanted for me. A future where I know exactly who I am, where I came from, and where I'm going. Some people think moving forward means letting go of the past. I learned it means carrying it with you, letting it strengthen you rather than hold you back. My dad's watch still keeps perfect time on my wrist, and so do I.